And we're streaming. We have another minute though. I should wait till 9:30.
Madam Mayor, we're now streaming on YouTube.
Thank you. And it's 9:30, so we can get started then. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first, I guess, of this year. Yeah, it is the first of this year that we're back into this virtual, totally virtual scenario. So I will call the meeting to order at 9:30. And as usual, I'll note that we are continuing to hold our council meetings electronically through the COVID period. Members of the public are invited to participate by accessing the meeting, which can be seen on our Middlesex Centre YouTube channel on the live stream. There are no additions to the agenda, so I'll ask if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, then we can move right to our delegations. This morning, the first delegation is from MPAC. I'd like to welcome Brenda Slater, who's the account manager, to provide a presentation. And there she is.
Oh, there we go. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Brenda. We can hear you. I can't see you just yet.
Oh.
There you are.
There I am. Okay.
All right.
There's a lot of information popping up on the screen there, so I wasn't sure what was happening. So I'm going to present my screen. If you can give me just one moment. I've only done this once on Zoom, so it may just take me a minute. Hopefully you're able to see. Are you able to see the presentation?
Not yet.
My apologies.
There we go.
There we're going. Thank you very much.
We just need to make it a bit bigger, I think.
There we go. We got her. Thank you very much, your worship, members of council and staff. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this morning. It has been quite a while since I've been able to do council presentations, so it's a nice change this morning. As you know about MPAC, our database is actually one of the largest databases in the world, and our assessment right now is just over 5.4 million properties with a total assessment value of 3 trillion. And this is information as of 2021. And just an interesting point that 90% of our overall assessments in the province are residential. When we take a look at Middlesex Centre, and these percentages are based on the year-end analysis report, assessment report that was sent out in early January. It was sent out in the fall to finance staff and then shared with members of council in early January. And this is looking at your total assessment base for this year, for the 2021 taxation year, and just sharing it for you as an assessment value, and then also as a percentage of that overall 100%. I know that you've seen this type of graphic and this type of slide before. We included in the presentation just to note that it is the responsibility of the Ministry of Finance to set the legislation and the regulations that guide the work that MPAC does. When there's a change to tax policy or issues, that also is at the jurisdiction of the Ontario government. Our values, we assess and classify all properties in Ontario, all different property types, and it's as of a set valuation date. So our current valuation date is January 1, 2016. That applied initially to the 2017 through 2020 taxation years. And now the Ministry of Finance has paused our assessment updates. So that same value will apply for 2021 and 2022. And I do have a couple other slides to speak to that. Certainly, if property owners have questions or concerns about their property assessment, we encourage them to reach out to our office. Municipalities are working with our assessments to determine property taxes, and property owners who have questions specifically about their taxes or their tax calculation, we encourage them to reach out to their local municipality. So in terms of the next province-wide assessment update, in the spring budget, the Ministry of Finance announced that it would pause the assessment update one more time for the 2022 taxation year. So what that means is that all of our property assessments are still based on that original valuation date of January 1, 2016. One of the things they also mentioned, the government mentioned, is they are doing ongoing consultations right now. And those are expected, the results of that consultation is expected to be shared later in the fall. So hopefully we'll have a little bit more information in the fall. During a meeting yesterday, actually, my new regional manager mentioned there is the AMO conference that is in August typically, and perhaps there may be some additional information shared even about the consultations, et cetera. So just a reminder then, as I mentioned, the valuation date's January 1, 2016. Even though the assessment update has been paused, we do continue our work on property assessments. We are continuing to do assessments on new construction when it's safe to do so. We continue to respond to inquiries from property owners. And any changes that we make still have to reflect that same valuation date so that everyone is assessed as of that same point in time. Changes that we make to property assessments during the year, we would send out a property assessment notice to the property owner, and those are all captured on the assessment roll that we share with municipalities at the end of the year. In terms of our role in the building permit process, it certainly has been a rather unique year. And currently with lockdown, all of our property inspections are currently on pause, which means our property inspectors are not currently out in the field. However, saying that, the municipality of Middlesex Centre has been fantastic in sharing with us electronic building permit plans. And to date, we've received 261 sets of plans, which is fantastic. So that really allows us to continue to capture that new assessment for your municipality. And the assessment forecast, I'm not certain, I didn't put a slide in, but the assessment forecasts that we share every year. And what we do is we forecast the amount of assessment, the new construction that's available and ready to be assessed this year. And hopefully, as I said, with us receiving the electronic plans, we receive monthly building permit spreadsheets from Middlesex Centre. We receive all of the final inspection dates, the occupancy dates, which really, really helps us to prioritize assessment that we know is complete and ready to assess. We are currently sitting at just about 3 million shy of the forecast that we've set for this year. And it is certainly in line with all of the new growth assessments that we've captured for Middlesex Centre in the last couple of years. The other nice thing is we also track the metric of how much new construction is within a year of occupancy. and we're sitting at 86% within a year of occupancy. Last year it was 94%. So that's a really great metric to make sure that we're getting current with the building permits. So this was actually the slide I spoke to earlier. Sometimes I just get talking away. Just reminding everyone that we do reflect changes on the new assessment notices for property owners throughout the year, and those are captured on the year-end assessment roll. About My Property was given a bit of an overhaul in preparation for the update. And when the assessment update was paused, we still went ahead and updated a number of the changes. So there are a lot of new features on the site that property owners will certainly find helpful to review their assessment, look at comparable properties in their neighborhood, etc. The other thing that it notes on the slide is anytime property owners wish to ask MPAC for a review of their assessment, they can certainly file a request for reconsideration. There are deadlines attached to the reconsiderations. That's March 31st of this year. And if a property owner has received a notice throughout the year, that reconsideration deadline should be clearly marked on their notice as well. And just as a point of interest, because I always like to look up some numbers, but there were 18 reconsiderations filed last year, and we have 3 on file right now for the 2021 taxation year. So, the last couple slides, the 2020 Municipal Partnerships report was sent out as well, and that was shared with all municipal staff and council, and really highlighted a lot of the work that we were able to do this year with the support of our municipalities. And initially when COVID hit, we asked municipalities, we asked our municipal liaison group, what is that expectation from MPAC? And we heard that you wanted us to keep the work going, keep that business going, continue with as little disruption. And in municipalities where we are getting those electronic plans, we really had to look at different ways to capture that new assessment, and it has certainly been successful in Middlesex Centre and in all of my areas, which I'm very, very, very excited about for me. The last slide is just ways to get in touch with us. We are 100% working from home. Our offices are currently closed to the public. We can make an appointment if we have an assessment review board hearing or whatnot, but they are not open to the public at the moment. Always ways to get in touch with us. Visit our website. I do encourage you to subscribe to our In Touch newsletter. Great information that comes out every month and just hits the highlights on what's new and sort of what's relevant. Share some wonderful partnership stories. I know I was highlighted in the last one, so that's always nice. Every once in a while, we just have some great stories that's worth sharing. And also to check out our monthly webinars. The webinar that we hosted on April the 8th was how MPAC assesses farm properties. So there's a lot of great webinars that we've already hosted. They're all recorded. You can go on back and review those at any time. And that is all I have. And absolutely, as always, please feel free to reach out to myself at any time. I'm always available to help out.
Well, thank you for that presentation, Brenda. I'll look to council for any questions. Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Brenda. When you do get the ability to reassess properties, COVID has impacted properties greatly. Like we've seen massive increases. Is there some way you're going to be able to temper that, or are you just going to put that, those increases in over a 4-year period, which will result in huge tax increases for people and really put a burden on them? Is there some way that you're looking at tempering that and perhaps not doing the full impact over the next 4 years when you do get a chance to reassess them?
So thank you for that question. Actually, I wanted to mention one other thing when I spoke to the reconsideration, so I'll answer that in 2 parts if that's okay. One of the things, one of our positions, and this applies to reconsiderations as well as appeals that are filed right now, if the reason for filing the appeal is COVID, so that's the reason they're citing for filing, and there are no other issues or changes to the property, then there would be no change to their assessment because our valuation date is January 1, 2016 right now. With regards to the assessment update, it is really just a wait and see. Once that the Minister of Finance announces when the next valuation date will be, they will also have to set the parameters in terms of whether it will be another 4 years, whether they'll change the phase-in structure. We need a little bit of runway, so they would have to give us a little bit of notice to tell us when we need to do that assessment update. But it really, really is a wait and see. We need that valuation date so we can set the parameters for the sales that we'll be analyzing. And then we also need to know whether it's going to be a 1 year, whether there's phase in, et cetera. So that is the number one question that we're getting right now, absolutely.
Councillor Arts, go ahead.
Through your Madam Mayor to Brenda, if I was building a house today, the value is going to be the current value. You times it by the mill rate to pay your taxes. And once we do the new assessments, the assessments are going to go up so high, we're probably going to lower the mill rate because a lot of properties are going to see a 50% increase. So theoretically, if I'm building a new house today, once the new assessment impact does a review and all that, I actually are probably going to be paying less tax because the mill rate will drop. And I'm at current, is that kind of logical thinking or is that off the wall?
So again, there's a lot of factors that we will take into account. So again, once we know when that valuation date is, and once we know whether we're phasing in the assessments or it's a 1 year assessment, that will depend. And then of course, once all those assessments are shared with the municipalities, then it'll be a matter of setting those tax rates. So it's really hard to know until we get those dates and that firmed up, and then our values, we can start to finalize those as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see any more hands. So again, I'd like to thank you, Brenda, for taking time to present to us today and try to look into that crystal ball a little bit as well. I also thank you for your acknowledgement of our building staff. That's very kind, and we're very proud of them as well. And finally, I'd like to just say congratulations to you and your team. We got the email from your chair of the board of directors last week with your annual report, and there was a lot of good information in there. It looks like you have done a great job of pivoting it as well. So congratulations, and thank you again for your time this morning.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you for your patience with my technical difficulties.
Oh, not at all. See you next
I
time.
appreciate it. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
You as well. Bye-bye. Okay. We're moving on now to item 4.2, and I'll ask our CAO to give us an update on the COVID-19 situation now that we've moved into another phase.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the chair, I'm just going to share my screen if everyone can see that. Excellent. I just thought it'd be timely just because of the third wave that we're encountering, and now we're doing things remotely, just to give council a very quick update of things, how things are at the municipality. And so just wanted to do a quick presentation just for the benefit of council and the public. What's happening since the outbreak began, we're now 1 year into things. We declared an emergency back on March the 17th. And since that time, the emergency control group that consists of the senior leadership team, staff members, the mayor and deputy mayor, along with external stakeholders like the health unit, the police from time to time, and the county EMS have come together. And ever since March 17th, we've been meeting frequently, almost originally 2 to 3 times a week. And now we're on a weekly basis where we make sure that we come together and look after the best interests of the municipality. Information in relation to the municipality's response has been updated on a frequent daily basis, and anyone who's interested to see all of the actions taken can log on to our website, and the hyperlink is there. And we also are doing our best to keep staff and council briefed and informed almost on a daily basis on information that's flowing from whether it's the health unit or the province. So we're doing our best to maintain positive dialogue and make sure that we're on top of things. And I think our control group is doing an excellent job in that regard. Since last week, the third provincial declaration of emergency was declared, and a stay-at-home order came into effect on April the 8th, which is why we're meeting remotely and staff are working remotely for the most part. Some of the notable differences in the stay-at-home order include, as noted there, in terms of the retail establishments that are limited to essential needs. The schools remain open, but we now just found out that schools have transitioned to remote learning. And so that's one other recent change that just took place. And essentially, we're supposed to stay at home and just leave our main premises for essential needs, and that's outlined there. The hyperlink contains a bit of an overview of the stay-at-home order that was released from the province, if anyone's interested, and this will be on our website. In addition to that, I know there's some questions in relation to a lockdown versus a stay-at-home, and it all has to do with the provincial orders that came into effect last year at the beginning of the pandemic. And so I've just provided a bit of an overview in terms of the regulations, and that's when people are asking and why the municipality is taking the actions it does. The main reasons are we're following the regulations that the province has instituted. And so that gives us the rationale as to why we might open an arena or a section of arena or part of town hall. It all depends, and that's in relation to how we interpret and comply with the regulations that are in effect. One thing I wanted to share with council and the public is that there is the vaccination program that is underway, which I think is a good thing, obviously. And the information is all contained on the health unit. And we're trying to encourage individuals to check the health unit out and go to the website. It changes on a daily basis, so much so that the age has just been changed to 60 and above are now eligible. And so it's important to stay up to date for those that are interested to look at the eligibility and do pre-registration where applicable. The municipality has done its part, and we've tried to be proactive in sharing this information. And we did outreach to a lot of our community groups and had dialogue with them, which has been well received. So we're trying to do our part as a conduit to share the information where possible. Back in the spring, the management team came together and we put in place a project restart, and it was how we could do, how we would react to a recovery plan. And since that time, our staff have done a tremendous job, and we have certain phases that are in effect. And with this pandemic, we've had to be very strategic in how we pivot back and forth and react back and forth. And we're at a point now where the confidence in the team is just wonderful, in the sense that we're able to react on a moment's notice and make the flexible and necessary changes as needed in accordance with those orders. And so we do rely on this project restart plan. We do amend it from time to time and make adjustments as necessary, but just to reassure council and the public that our staff are on it and we are compliant when it comes to reacting when we need to in accordance with how the pandemic is faring. Just a bit of an overview, our operations that have been affected, our public serving facilities unfortunately are shut down for the current period. Our municipal office, it's closed to the public, but we are providing services online, or we are doing it by appointment only as needed. So we are still able to deal with the public. We have the screening protocols in place, which I'll get to, but we are trying to find that right balance to make sure that at the end of the day, our priority is public service and to make sure that we are servicing the needs of our community. Once the order ends, we are going to obviously, we'll pivot again. We'll use our project restart and we'll start to open up our facilities and our services as appropriate. It's basically taking a hybrid approach and how we look at our amenities, and we try and do what's what's best for the public and what's compliant with the health order, with the health unit and the orders that are in effect. So some of our playgrounds, our sports courts and walking trails are open at the current time. So we just preach patience with the public, because we know sometimes we have to make these decisions, and we want to make sure that we're doing it for the best interests and the health and wellness of our community. We do have the continuity of essential services, such things as our water, wastewater treatment, our public works. We've been going at it since it's been seamless, and we haven't stopped. So most of the staff are continuing to work. Some of our administrative staff are working remotely from certain locations to make sure that we keep those numbers in accordance with the health unit and the provincial orders. And we're just thinking and working differently, but at the end of the day, I'm very proud to say that staff are doing a tremendous job, and we're at a point where the seamless transition is no longer a transition. It's just it's become our day-to-day to make sure that we can follow through with the operations of the municipality. Our building department is operating, and as you heard Brenda say from MPAC, we're doing a good job to manage construction activity. That we've been able to have that dialogue with MPAC because of the CVA being frozen for the upcoming year. We still have that dialogue to provide the open permits and the new permits to them, so that we are adding to our assessment role. The one thing that I'll note from the last update that I gave at the beginning of the year is that we have kept our staff employed, and that includes all full-time and part-time staff, and everyone is working back to normal working hours. Our managers are doing a good job making sure that staff are able to work safely with one another where appropriate, and we're doing it strategically where we can target areas and have staff work, and especially with the weather warming up, we don't have any issues to make sure that we have our health and safety protocols in place. Our screening protocols are in place, so that we're really able throughout this lockdown to make sure that part-time and full-time staff are working, and they're doing so in a safe way. As I shared at the beginning of the year, our screening protocols are in place, and this is applicable for both our employees and for our visitors and contractors. So for our staff, we've developed it's somewhat like a tree system where every day there's a daily update that goes to the managers that staff are completing their simple screening protocol before they enter the workplace. And it's the same type of situation for our visitors and contractors, whereby they have the simple QR scanning code, or we have a paper copy for those that don't want to use their phone, and they just simply fill it out before they enter onto premises or when they enter into the entrance area, complete it, and then we follow through with our service. So we're just doing the checks and balances, because if we get audited, we want to make sure that we can respond back to the health unit and make sure that we're doing our part. In terms of the fiscal preparedness, council has been provided from our CFO with frequent communications to the staff and to the public on the operations of the municipality. We've received some recovery for COVID funding in the amount of 250,000, give or take, and we're using that to apply towards our operational costs so that we can relieve our financial pressures with things being closed and not seeing the same revenues as before. So we have our cost containment strategies in place, and they are working fairly well to make sure that we're maintaining our capital and are operating accordingly. So to date, we're doing okay, and we just have to hope that the pandemic eases so that we can come back together once again and won't have to worry about these recovery reports that our CFO is doing an awesome job preparing to you. In terms of fiscal assistance to residents, I just wanted to touch upon this a little bit, but some of the initiatives that we've taken as a municipality, we're trying to do our part, and we are cognizant of the financial pressures that the public are facing. So we just want to try and play our part with the limited legislative requirements that we can fulfill. But we have moved our tax and water billings. We pushed them off a little bit to ease some pressure. We've put in place a new community improvement plan, and council will be receiving a report in the not too distant future, which had really good uptake. We just had a meeting earlier this week where there were 8 applications that came forward. Generally, we have 2 to 3 on average. So, to see a 3-fold increase shows that it's working and that we're trying to provide assistance to our business community, which I think is a good initiative. We've continued to have dialogue and outreach with our business community, which I think is important as well. Whenever we get information from the province or from the health unit, every so often we're sharing information. We have on our website a site dedicated to the business sector, so I think that's good. And in addition to that, I'm sitting with the county warden and our county director of economic development, and we're just looking at the economic resiliency task force and looking at initiatives that are taking place and sharing information with one another. So Middlesex Center is at the table and doing our part to assist the businesses in the community where possible. Obviously, the impact to council meetings, we are in a virtual format again. And once the pandemic and the orders ease a little bit where we can meet in person, we'll certainly do so. But for now, it's moving business forward. So we just practice patience and we'll get through things. And just to close off in terms of next steps, the emergency control group continues to meet. So our meeting tomorrow is as planned, as scheduled. We're continuing to monitor and respond to the provincial and health unit directions and protocols that are in place, and providing assistance if called upon to roll out for the vaccine distribution. The CareDoc has the site that's there, and we're in close contact with the county in terms of how we can provide assistance and do outreach to our community groups, which we're doing. So we're just trying to do our part. I encourage members of the public to look at our website because our communications is doing an excellent job keeping things updated as much as possible. And just to share that if individuals are interested to learn, the best thing to do is to go to the Middlesex London Health Unit website. A lot of information is noted in terms of the learning about the vaccine, learning about eligibility and the requirements. And I would encourage people interested to learn and find out and just visit the information. So that is just a quick overview that I wanted to give to council, that things are rolling along as best as possible here at Middlesex Center to keep services running, and we'll continue to do so throughout this pandemic.
That's great. Thank you, Michael. I'll look to council for questions. Everybody's nodding and smiling. I think there are none. So again, thanks for that, Michael, because there's a lot going on and it's good to keep up on this. I do want to say, I think as council members, we're all really grateful for the work that you're doing. We're keeping up to speed, and we're kept up to speed, and say kudos to staff for the integrated approach they're taking and making sure that we're taking all the big picture views of the financial pieces and the health and safety of our workers, as well as how do we deliver services to our residents and make sure we can flex wherever we can to get them out on a walking trail or whatever we can do. So yeah, we'll look forward to actually implementing that restart plan soon. So thank you for that update. So I don't see any hands waving that have thought of a question while I was rambling. So let's move on to the next item, which is the Court of Revision. I'm going to ask for a motion that council adjourn the regular meeting or in order to sit as the Court of Revision under Section 97 of the Drainage Act as amended to consider the Bear Creek drain and the Reg drain with members, councillors Heffernan and Arts and myself in the chair. Could I have a motion for that, a mover for that motion? Councillor Cates and Councillor Heffernan. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, then we are in the Court of Revision and I'll call the meeting to order. Do we need to wait for Michael DeVos?
We do not.
Okay. All right, good.
Will not be joining us.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure about that. We didn't have any appeals for this. I'll ask, do the members of the committee have any questions on this application, this file? None. They're saying no. So deliberations, any other questions, comments? No. In that case, we can have, I'll move to decision because we have one motion for that. Nope.
We can move to a decision.
Yeah.
Motion.
And adjourn, yeah, and I won't adjourn until we get to the next one. Okay, so the motion with respect to the first item is that Middlesex Centre Court of Revision approves the schedule of assessment for the Bear Creek Municipal Drain and the Drainage Works 2020 adopted by bylaw 2020, number 031, as outlined in the report prepared by Spreed Associates. I'll look to our revision committee here. Is there a mover? Councillor Arts and Councillor Heffernan seconding. Any opposed? Okay, there are no opposed, so that motion is carried. And we can now move to the second item on the agenda here, which is the Reg Municipal Drain. Again, there are no appeals with respect to this matter. Do either of the members have questions on this? Seeing none. Deliberations, no comments? Okay, in that case, we can move to a decision. And the motion before us is that Middlesex Centre Court of Revision approves the schedule of assessment for the Reg Drain and the Drainage Works 2020 adopted by bylaw 2021 number 32 as outlined in the report prepared by Spreed and Associates, and that the Court of Revision is hereby adjourned and the Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre resumed the April 14th, 2021 meeting of Council. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Heffernan, and seconded by Councillor Arts. Any opposed? None. Thank you then, and we are back into the regular session. We can move to item 6.1, which is the minutes of March 24, 2021 Council meeting. The motion is that the minutes of that meeting be adopted as printed. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Scott and Councillor Cates. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. We have a number of items on the consent agenda. These are items that are considered routine and require discussion, but no action on, may require discussion, but there's no action on the part of council. We usually receive these in one motion. So I would ask, is there anyone who would like to have one or more item removed for further action or discussion here? Very well, then I'll make them read the motion that items 7.1 through 7.7 listed under the heading consent agenda for April 14th, 2021 be adopted as recommended. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Scott, are there any opposed? Seeing none, then those items are passed. Okay, moving on to staff reports. The first item up is property tax billing and the collections policy, and we'll ask that our Tiffany, yeah, CP corporate services person. Oh, there she is. She's on board. Good morning.
Morning.
Okay. Would you like to present your report on tax billing and collections?
Yes. So through you, Mayor DeVete, this is just a cleanup of the policy that we currently have in place. So we do already have the tax billing and collection policy. You'll notice in the report, in the analysis section, there is notable changes that were included within this revision. At this time, one of the biggest things that I'd like to draw council's attention to is adding the authority to the deputy treasurer, which would mirror the authority of the treasurer. This is allowed under the Municipal Act. And so that position would also have the same authority as I would when it comes to writing off accounts for uncollectible. That are uncollectible, and changes to when past due statements are sent. So we've now added a minimum outstanding amount of $25 for monthly statements. However, we will be sending one statement to each of these owners that are in arrears every year. Right now, we are sending it monthly, and with the $5 statement fee, especially if a property owner only owes a few dollars that they might have missed in their last payment, this can cause others to get upset. So we have changed that to a minimum of $25. People can always call the municipal office and they will see their outstanding balances on their tax bills that they receive twice a year. So those were the biggest changes that came with the tax billing and collection policy. So if council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you for that report then. I'll look to council. Are there any questions on this matter? I don't see any. So the motion before us is that the report CPS number 18, 2021 regarding property tax billing and collection policy be received and that the policy appended to the report be approved. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Cates. Is anyone opposed? None, so that motion is carried. Thank you, Tiffany. And you're the next up for the water, wastewater, storm billing and collection policy as well.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor DeVete. So same as the tax billing and collection policy, the water, wastewater, and stormwater billing and collection policy was just a housekeeping matter. We wanted to clean up the policy. One of the notable changes that you'll see is with respect to adding in a payment plan option. This was something that council had passed a few years ago, where we started to offer this payment plan option to our residents. So we wanted to clean that up and put that into the policy. We have the same additional duties and responsibilities to the manager of finance, which is our deputy treasurer, which is allowed under the Act. And we have updated the usage and billing dispute section. So this is something that the municipality has normally followed with respect to speaking with our residents on the usage and the billing, any kind of disputes and how it gets brought throughout the organization, starting with finance and moving to water for those more difficult situations where we need that expertise. So all of this has been added to the policy to clean it up. At this time, I would just ask if council has any other questions.
And Deputy Mayor Brennan, and then Councillor Heffernan.
To you, Madam Mayor, Tiffany. With the payment plan option now in the last year with COVID, have we seen much of an increase in the payment plan policy? Are there a lot of people taking advantage of that, or is it just for the odd one again?
Through you, Mayor DeVete. So we haven't seen a huge increase in that actually. It is more for the odd situation. However, because council did waive the penalties last year for a period of a few months, that did assist our residents. So I found that that alone required people not to even enter into a payment plan. So that was a positive change. We do have some, and normally that will happen when they have, say, a larger bill that they need a little bit more time paying before it gets transferred to taxes. Those are the residents that we're seeing in the payment plan, but it is always an option. But we haven't seen anything significant due to COVID at this point.
Okay. Councillor Heffernan.
Through Mayor DeVete to Tiffany. So is the 60 days unpaid bill, which is added to taxes, is that different than the payment plan that may be requested?
Yes, so through you, Mayor DeVete. So that after 60 days, when it gets added to taxes, that is what would be stopped if people enter into a payment plan. So at this time, if you are struggling with paying your bill, if you contact the municipal office and you enter into that payment plan, we will set up some payments for you. We'll work with you on this. It will not be transferred to your taxes. And that's the part that the residents are looking at. They don't want it on their taxes. It does have priority lien status, so it can be transferred to taxes. And that is ultimately how a municipality does collect on all these outstanding balances. So that if they are part of that payment plan, they don't get transferred. There is a transfer fee when they transfer it onto taxes as well. If your mortgage company is paying your property taxes, they can also charge you additional fees by having something transferred on throughout the year that they were not aware of.
I have an additional question. That's so, for example, if a person didn't pay their March bill, they have 60 days to pay it. So that means end of May. So so technically they could then pay it off by the end of May, and they could be late continually, really? Like if they were, like, I don't know why you do that, but.
Yeah, so through your Mayor DeVete, so ultimately, yes. So it would be, it's every month that we look at that. It could be the same residents that constantly have it transferred onto taxes, but they do have, so if your bill is due at the end of March, you have 30 days to pay before any interest or penalties are attached. And then it's another 30 days, you'd get another 30 days. And then there's a notice about being transferred to taxes. So we did implement this process a few years ago when we stopped taking tenants unless they have been grandfathered in, as you'll see in the policy. So this is one of those things that, and we stopped taking tenants and we stopped with the disconnection. So the municipality would normally disconnect people for late, like really late payment, not after 1 month by any means. But we did stop that, and it just gets transferred to taxes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see any hands. So the motion before us is that the report CPS number 19/2021 regarding water, wastewater, and stormwater billing and collection policy be received, and that the policy appended to the report be approved. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Cates and Councillor Shipley. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that motion is carried then. Thank you, Tiffany. And now we're going to move on to Vision Zero campaign, which would be our Director of Public Works and Engineering, Rob Cascadden. There you are. Oh, and Andrew's here too, right? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? So through you, Madam Mayor, I'll just walk through this report briefly, touching on some of the major points. So the intention of this report is just to provide council an update on our Vision Zero plans for 2021. As you know, we're building on our campaign from last year, our Vision Zero campaign, which kind of was the initial implementation of that. The 2021 plan will build upon the 40 km/h residential speed limit report that was presented in the fall of 2020. And it'll help work our way towards the strategic plan objective to improve road safety for all users. As you all know, the goal of Vision Zero is to eliminate injury and fatality from collisions. And we all know that the increased speeds have a dramatic impact on the severity of collisions, particularly when it comes to certain road users, the vulnerable road users such as pedestrians and cyclists. So in 2020, we initiated the Vision Zero campaign, which included that 40 km residential speed limit report and the implementation of that signage around the high pedestrian generating areas like parks, schools, retirement residences. And then one of the other major things that we did last year was we purchased an additional speed trailer, which effectively doubles our ability to be able to provide that piece of education and tracking speeds for the public. And we also developed and commenced and deployed a respect the limit lawn sign last fall as well. So in 2021, we plan to continue this approach using the 3 E's that are related to Vision Zero, which include both engineering, education, and enforcement. So we have 7 main areas, and I'll just touch on them briefly, but the main 7 areas that we're focusing on for 2021 is, one is to continue to promote the respect the limit signage that we've already developed. 2 is continued implementation of the radar trailers. Now that we have 2, we'll certainly be able to cover a lot more ground, and we always set those up in areas where we have known problems, so when residents reach out, or the OPP as well. We're also planning to purchase another smaller device that will collect data. It won't give feedback to the public, but it'll allow us to collect data to develop baseline data, as well as look at post-implementation data, so that we can determine what the impacts are of the various measures that we put in place and ensure that we're getting the benefit from them that we hope that we're getting. Number 3, we'll continue with the installation of centerline markers in select areas, similar to what has been done in past years. Some of the areas will be areas that have had these previously, and then there'll be some new areas that will be have them installed as well. And those locations planned for 2021 are identified on Appendix A. They're not perfect by any means, but they do help reduce speeds by narrowing that traffic path for the vehicles, and by creating that tighter space, generally speeds will be reduced. We also continue to liaise with the county and work on road safety issues with them, whether it's pedestrian or vehicular. Certainly there's discussions ongoing about crosswalks and urbanization of different sections to help with traffic speeds. And we'll continue to work with the OPP, local school boards, and community stakeholders. And the intent is to work on a spring and fall safety blitz, to look at enforcement and share educational materials with those groups. And then we'll also continue to look at opportunities to include traffic calming within the design of new subdivisions. So currently we're looking at our design standards, and as part of that, we're looking at areas that we would like to update to implement traffic calming and those complete street aspects within the design standards for future subdivisions. And then lastly, number 7, the other item that we are implementing this year is the purchase and then the installation of temporary speed cushions in select areas. So in Appendix B, we've identified select areas for initial installation. And the nice thing about them being temporary, they're removable. They can be put in other areas for trials. And this is where we'll also be collecting data to see what the impact of these installations are. And if we find them favorable, then we can look at longer term permanent installations in select areas as well. So the financial impact is about $42,000 for the purchase of the additional equipment this year and the installation, and that's all covered through the existing budget that was approved last year for the 2021 Vision Zero budget. So that's the end. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I'll start with Deputy Mayor Brendan, and I see Councillor Heffernan's hand up as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Rob. Rob, as you just spoke, there's a lot of things going on to calm traffic and slow speed down and everything, but are we doing anything to educate the cyclist? I see them on our roads all the time. They're supposed to be riding in single file along the shoulder, on the edge of the road. We're seeing them 4 and 5 wide consistently on our roads. Is there anything we can do, put signage up or something saying, please ride in single file or something like that, because they're creating more of a traffic hazard than the cars are by not following what they're supposed to be doing. So I don't know if there's anything we can do about that or not, or if there's anything in the Vision Zero that speaks to that.
So through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor, yeah, that's certainly something we have not done that yet, but absolutely we can include that, and we can look to put some educational material on the website as part of the Vision Zero campaign. Andrew and I can look at signage as well, but I'm thinking more probably along the lines of the website. And you certainly see cyclists on both our local roads and the county. Most of where I probably seen them is probably on county roads with the wider paved shoulders, typically, but not always. And I have experienced what you're describing as well firsthand. So. And I'm not sure what the county has as far as material on their website, but we can certainly, it's something, again, we can liaise with the county and try to do something jointly ultimately.
All right, I think, no, the deputy doesn't have an add-on. Councillor Heffernan, would you like to jump in?
Yep. To Mayor DeVete, to Rob, I have a couple of questions. First one is, do we still have lots of signs left for people to put up on their lawns?
The respect to limit, yes, we have lots of those left. So yeah, and
Okay.
we've had some residents reach out to us, and we're trying to get the word out that they are available for pickup. So
okay, good. The second thing is, what parameters did you use to put the street cushions in place? Because I know there's probably a couple of streets in Ilderton, like Robert or Stonefield, that could probably use some slowing down. Just wondering how you figured out what you did.
yeah,
And how soon could we get those in Ilderton?
So through Madam Mayor, I'm going to say, so one of the first things we looked at was traffic volumes and known speeding areas, right? So the areas identified, Jeffries has been a known problem in the past. As far as the analysis, as far as spacing and whatnot, I'm going to let Andrew jump in here if he wants to talk a little bit about that.
Sure, Rob, thank you. To answer that question as it relates to spacing, we followed best practice standards, and our neighboring municipality, London, has an extensive document on traffic calming that we had a once over to look through. And around that 100 to 150 meter spacing between cushions is what you would typically see to reduce traffic volume or speed, to 50 kilometers an hour. With greater spacing, you tend to see speeds increase in between the cushions. So that 100 to 150 meter spacing was found to be optimal for getting those traffic speeds down to 50 kilometers an hour.
So I think looking at the application to other roads, we would look at what the geometry of the road and see what spacings may work on it, as far as if the curves are close enough, it may not be prudent to put those in place, but also looking at traffic volumes and the speeds that are actually there. Because certainly sometimes we do see where we're called to put out a trailer because we have reported of significant speeding. And once we get the data back, it's really not there. So sometimes there is a perception. So the first thing to do would certainly be to collect data in that area. So if there are specific areas that residents want to identify, we keep a list for the deployment of the speed trailer. So that would be a starting point.
Okay, thanks a lot, Rob.
I don't see other hands, so I'll just say thank you for that report, Rob, because as you know, this is something that's really important to me as well. And I'm really happy to see that we're getting funding for the program, and that it's integrated. You're looking at getting data and assessing things, and then looking at reasonable things you can do right away and building into the long term as well with the site plans. So yeah, integrated and comprehensive approach. Thank you very much for that. The motion before us is that the report. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed Councillor Cates. Go ahead, please, Sue.
I just want to say thank you. It's as you know, it's been a hot topic, and I just want to thank you for all the efforts that's in your 7 steps that you've got in your report.
Super. So again, efforts are appreciated, and the motion before us now is that the report PWE 11/2021 regarding 2021 Vision Zero campaign be received, and that council endorses the continuation of the Vision Zero campaign for 2021. A mover and seconder, please. Councillor Cates and Councillor Heffernan. Any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried then. Moving on to community services, we're going to have our director, Scott Maris, provide the report on Gypsy Moth survey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, it took me a minute there to connect. Good morning, everybody. I've got Landon Black from Stantec, who is our arborist who performed the Gypsy Moth studies. Just want to confirm he's on the line as well. I see him there. Paul Zimmer was to join us as well. He might be a little late. I did tell him around 10:30, so he might be joining at any time now. Heather will keep an eye out for him. So just to provide brief history on this this topic, in 2019, I was made aware of these gypsy moths in a problem area down in the Kilworth area. This was kind of later in the spring, summer, when they had already hatched, etc., specifically around Westbrook Park. Now, in 2020, recognizing we were coming up to another bad season of these in this particular area of Westbrook Park, we did work with Davey Tree on doing a ground level spray of the area at that time. We believe that was an effective treatment as per the egg mass survey that was recently completed by Stantec. And that was our approach last year. It was costly because it was a ground level spray. It was very labor intensive. We worked very closely with the residents. There was approximately 43 homes that surround this woodlot along Pheasant Trail, Birchcrest, Westbrook Drive, and they all signed on and paid their portion to have their area sprayed as well. I myself witnessed it. I walked this site last year, delivering the letters door to door. It was nothing like I've seen before. Very apocalyptic, as I've always called it. They were literally raining on me. So this was a very bad area, and we felt like we needed to do something, one, to protect our own woodlot, but to work with the residents and try and do something here. Coming out of that, in the 2021 budget, we did allocate some funds to perform an egg mass survey with Stantec, and Landon Black and his team were involved and completed that egg mass survey back in February. I think the field work was completed. I've got him on the call if there's any technical questions that might come up. But as you can see in the report, the details of the egg mass surveys are listed there. We do feel the spraying from last year did have an impact. However, recognizing this could possibly be the third, it might even be the fourth year now in this area, we do feel we want to take a larger approach or a more aggressive approach when it comes to the gypsy moths in Middlesex Centre. We're not unique. This is an issue across southwestern Ontario. So through Landon's work, we identified a few locations for us to look at. We did We did sites at Westbrook Park. We did sites at along in Kamoka on a private residence. We don't have a lot of woodlots in the Kamoka area, so a resident was kind enough to allow us to do that, so we can get an indication of how what it's like there. We did a site up in Ilderton. As we know, I was getting a lot of complaints last year about gypsy moss in the Ilderton area. From that, that's what Landon's now produced that report. We feel we want to, again, we're recommending a aerial spray of 4 areas in total. These areas were chosen because of they're municipally owned. They do border residential properties that could have an impact, and we can work together with the residents on this. And so we are recommending an aerial spray, this season of approximately 87 acres, which is what has been indicated on the mapping there. So I know the report was quite detailed, and there's a lot of information to review. I've got the experts on the call, so if there's any questions at this point, I'm just going to open it up to council.
Thank you for that. I'll look to council for questions then. We'll start with Deputy Mayor Brennan.
To you, Madam Mayor, to Scott or Landon or Paul. We sprayed this year, which hopefully will contain them this year. Is this going to be an ongoing thing for the next 2 or 3 years? Because there seems to be like a 7-year cycle to these things. And if other areas aren't spraying and we do spray, do they just move back into our area? So is this going to be an ongoing thing we're going to have to do for a few years?
I believe so. I might turn that over to Landon. He may have some more familiarity with the cycle. I know I've been here since 2012. This was the first, 2019 was the first phone call I received of them. In talking with the residents, I understand 2009, 2010 was a bad couple of years. So we know it is somewhat cyclical. But however, we do this area specifically around Westbrook Park and Kilworth and Ilderton's showing some moderate defoliation expectations. I think it'll be around for a while. I think for me, it highlights the need to have at least some sort of aerial spray program similar to what the city of Hamilton may have, the town of Oakville, et cetera, that we may need to tackle this over the next few years until it kind of subsides a little bit. But I think it does highlight a few things for me. Landon, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, so you're correct in saying that it's somewhere between 7 to 10 year cycle typically. And the spikes tend to last anywhere from 2 seasons to 3 seasons, but they can be as short as a single season. And the spike is dramatically different from the sort of just the endemic infestation level. And that fluctuates on scale to a pretty substantial degree because the gypsy moths aren't one of the more mobile pests. The females, well, I should say there's 2 strains. There's a European subspecies, which is the predominant one here, and there's an Asian subspecies. And within the European subspecies, the females are flightless. So the egg masses themselves tend not to move very far because they're dependent on the females. The males can sustain flight and move, but like I've seen in the States, some assessments saying that populations move in the order of 18 or 20 kilometers per year, but that would probably be more attributable to the movement of firewood or egg masses on things that are moved, such as trailers, that kind of thing. Within Ontario, southwestern Ontario, last year it was a spike in population across the board, and you certainly saw that in Middlesex Centre. But within that large geographic range, there are subpopulations that are on different cycles, a little bit different scheduling. They do sort of, for the most part, respect a broader trend, but you know, just because our survey results show a decline in egg masses, you know, within the sites we surveyed, and that's backed up by the MNRF data, which shows a general decrease. That's not to say that there aren't going to be delayed peaks in certain areas within Middlesex Center this year or the next year. So it's prudent to keep an eye on things and check out any reports of, you know, really bad infestations, and to really ensure that they don't happen year on year, because healthy tree stands can withstand, you know, a pretty significant amount of defoliation in a season, and their energy reserves are sufficient to refoliate and to not, you know, succumb to those injuries. But when it starts to occur year on year in a really substantial defoliation, and that's when you can expect to see some degree of mortality.
Okay, thank you for that, Langdon. Deputy, you have an add-on?
Yes, just one further thing to Scott. Scott, how do you plan on mitigating our liability? Aerial spraying, pretty well controlled, but do you have to go around the residents surrounding the areas and make sure they're okay with it so that we don't wind up in some liability issues?
Yes, through the mayor, there's two streams of communication that would have to happen in this respect. The first part of the communication is specific to the Westbrook mapping area. The intent there, because the 43 homes that surround Westbrook Park Woodlot, and this has been the one that's been most affected, and the one that we sprayed last year in partnership with the residents. The flyover would occur over these private residences as well. Meaning we would have to get a waiver signed by those homeowners to allow us to do that. So we are currently working on that. If approved by council, that will be one form of communication that will go to, I believe it's approximately 43 homes that are impacted here. There's a secondary communication piece that for those who may live across the street. So they're not directly impacted, they're not directly in the flight path, but they, you know, the surrounding community around these areas, and that's including the ones up in Ilderton and the rail trail. There'll be communications that will be delivered door to door that will provide information as to the timing, you know, what to expect, and Heather and I are working on some communications for that.
Okay. All righty. I have Councillor Arts and then Kate and Heffernan. Go ahead, Councillor Arts.
Through your mayor, these are probably questions directed for Paul. First off, if you think you have an infestation, that's the right word, you probably should have sprayed already. So I think it's an issue that has to be addressed. My questions are, there's a 1.6 liter rate. I assume that's a split application of 0.8 each time. And time of day, when's the best time of day? Early morning, late morning, night, cloudy day, sunny day? Like, I was just a little more curious on the specifics of the best bang for the spray that you're putting on. Thank you.
Yeah, so 1.6 is the maximum label rate per acre per application, which is what we use. So you do 2 applications. We do 2 applications at the maximum label rate. Municipal stuff, we tend to spray early in the morning. We want stable conditions, low winds or no wind. Well, I can say no wind, but minimal breeze, higher humidity, and lower temperatures. And that allows that, even though we're putting it in a very small droplet spectrum, that allows it to drop into the area quite well. So that's basically how we deal with the product. We use rotary atomizers to get it onto the leaves, and it's going to be so for some of this stuff I have to submit a ministerial authorization request, and all that stuff is usually before 8:30 in the morning. We're going to be done, but certainly this stuff will be. That's all I have on that, but I will, Scott talked about, getting waivers from everybody. Most municipalities, they simply just pass a bylaw that says you can't opt out, that you're going to be in a spray program. And that's how all the major municipalities do it. So that is an option if you choose to go that route.
Add on, Councillor Arts?
No, thank you.
Okay, next I had Councillor Cates, please. You're on mute.
Wow, can you hear me now? I just wanted to add that when Scott mentioned the 43 homes around the Westbrook area, that last night I did receive a petition that I have forwarded on to all of you, and there were, I think, 41 names on it, but some of them are, there's 41 people on there. So they're all very aware of this and very, very supportive and keen and eager and really desperate to have this done. So I just wanted to add that too.
Thank you. And Councillor Heffernan.
Yes, through the mayor to Scott, I guess. I noticed that there was only one test site in Ilderton, and that was on the rail trail to the south. But so do we know how bad the infestation is on the northern part in that area?
We don't. I didn't include that site just to manage the budget. So the plot that we identified, we had a lot of complaints from the heritage, at the tail end of that rail trail. I'm going to assume in Landon, I don't know if you can support this, if we were to plot out the site up by the water tower, we'll expect, being that it's very close proximity, we're likely going to see the same thing. That's a significant woodlot that we would want to protect. It wasn't chosen as part of the plot survey, just to manage budget at that point.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, as long as it's being sprayed, because there were a lot of complaints last year in that area. And I guess you just have to deal with it if you're not being sprayed, but yet you do have infestations, because there are some further east in Ilderton, but they're not included in the spraying area, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, through the mayor, I think what this highlights is a much larger program that we'll need to look at for the next couple of years anyway. Looking at other woodlots, municipally owned woodlots that we look to protect. The trees. We'll also look at some other areas that may have more of an impact on the residential side of things. I know Arva's starting to creep up. I guess starting to get a few complaints from that. We did not survey that area as well. For this year, we focused in on the ones that were highlighted and received the most complaints on. But I can see this being again, and I fielded many phone calls over the last year. Those who may own large woodlots or woodlots in general on their private property. That is not our intent. We are focusing on municipally owned woodlots. We have 92, give or take, across the Middlesex Center that we'll need to look at. The one in Westbrook is very unique in that we share that with those residents, and because of the impact that the moth has had in that community, that's why we felt we needed to look at that and do the flyover over those 43 homes as well. And as Councillor Cates indicates, I've had lots of communication with those on Birchcrest and Pheasant Trail, and they seem very supportive of this.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other, Councillor Shipley, please, and then Councillor Scott.
Through the mayor to Scott. Scott, have we had any negative, people don't want this spraying done? As you know, we're well aware there's people who don't want the COVID vaccine for whatever their beliefs, whatever. I'm just concerned there are going to be some people with the spraying over top of them that they don't want this. And if you have any contact with any of those people.
Through the mayor, I've had a few complaints, more concerns about the monarchs. That's been more the concern that's been brought forward. Haven't really had any complaints about, the concern of, the helicopter flying over or the use of the BTK. It's been more as how is it going to impact our monarch population, and for what I understand, these areas that are selected, they're not the typical habitats for those. It's a balancing act. At the same time, we are a monarch friendly community. We are planting pollinative gardens to support that, but we do have an infestation here that we need to control and do something with. So the negative comments have been minimal over the last year, and even since the report was posted, I haven't received any emails to date.
If I could just add a quick little comment. As far as insecticides go, the BTK is extremely targeted, and it has really only been shown to impact members of the gypsy moth species. So it's not your typical insecticide that, most of them are somewhat targeted, but this is as targeted as it gets. So we wouldn't expect to see any broader impacts on other invertebrates, really.
I'm sorry, can I jump in here just for a second? I know I'm not on the screen, but yes, BTK will control Lepidopteran. That includes the monarch family, but you have to actually have monarch larval feeding on milkweed at the same time. You've got a window of about 3 days before this stuff starts to break down in ultraviolet. That doesn't typically happen. Is it possible? Yes. Minimal, even if there is monarch larva feeding on milkweed underneath that canopy, highly unlikely, but you're doing such a small area, the impact is extremely minimal. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Shipley, did you have any add-on? No, okay, I have Councillor Scott then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, the mayor, to Scott. So in Delaware, I know I've had some requests about if we're doing anything. I'm thinking mainly along Victoria Street from residents just inquiring. So at this point, are we just kind of taking those concerns and looking at them for the future, or is there anything that they might be able to do now to look at a solution?
Through the mayor, we're certainly tracking, where we're getting some complaints. I mean, we're not out there, we're not inspecting, private woodlots and stuff. So we have an indication of where some potential hotspots might be. We're just kind of keeping an eye on that. We have part of our communications plans, and Heather, again, worked really hard last year, and we have our gypsy moth information page that has a lot of information there posted on how residents can do this maintenance themselves, and scraping off egg masses, and there's other options for them to work with certified company to do the spray. I know Paul and his team are booked for the season across the area, but there is there was that option as well that they could look at. So the private homes do have some options. We try and give them as much information as we can from what we know to do that passive management themselves.
Just to follow up, Scott, if I could. So some of these are right on our own municipal property, on the roadways on Victoria Street. So they don't belong to the homeowners. And I know they're concerned and they've asked me, what we could possibly do. So at this point, we're obviously trying our best to cover them all, but we don't have a plan in place necessarily for individual trees on a street, I'm assuming.
Through the mayor, correct. Rob and I have chatted, and Rob and Andrew have been involved for any of the municipally owned boulevard trees. Again, I think this highlights a program, a more robust program that's going to be needed overall, not only just in our parks, but perhaps our municipally owned boulevard trees. I'm going to put it out there, but we don't have right now a forest management plan or urban forestry plan. That's something we may need to look at in the future.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Anything for anyone else that's come up? Oh yes, okay, Councillor Heffernan.
Hi, through the mayor, I just want to add that the website has a lot of information. One of my neighbors went on there and they had some egg masses and they were quite pleased, and they've been working away, picking off these larvae with that burlap, using that burlap method. So anyway, there is a lot of information on the website.
Right. Yes, go ahead, Scott.
Sorry, Mayor, just to build upon, I know the question came up and Paul had mentioned, and I had talked to Paul and his team yesterday about a bylaw down the road, and it is something we may want to consider. Obviously, time is not on our side for that, hence the waivers for the Westbrook area specifically.
If there are no questions now from council, then we have a delegation registered to speak on this. I have Marlene and Terry Brown first. There we are. Good morning, Mr. Brown.
Good morning, and my wife Marlene is here with me.
Good morning.
Hello.
I just want to, I'm going to share a screen here. And hopefully. And is that showing up?
I don't think so. The share screen.
You're good to go.
Okay, thank you. We're Terry and Marlene, and we live on 35 Birchcrest Drive. And I just would like to say a big thank you to the Middlesex Center Council and the staff for commissioning a study to look into the problem. And sorry, just want to.
And to Scott in particular for taking a lot of or providing us with a lot of information, answering our phone call.
And such, yeah. And so we've been living here since 2000. And when we bought our house, there was a clause in our agreement when we purchased the property that the owners agree to preserve the trees as many trees as possible, and clear cutting is only permitted to construct the house and a laneway. And there was a restrictive bylaw that prohibits the cutting of trees at the back 40 feet of our property. And the back 40 feet, part of it adjoins onto Westbrook Park. And our understanding of that is that it's part of a natural erosion / water control system, because it is quite steep back there. And if the trees were gone, the neighbors down below on Pheasant Trail would be flooded during rainstorms. So this is kind of our spot, and we chose this spot because of the mature trees. Some of them are over 100 years old. And I just want to share some of the impact it had on us. I say people, we've been able to set up sort of a communication network in our neighborhood. I personally developed welts last spring as caterpillars would fall and just land on my arm, and legs, and I developed an allergic reaction to it. We had a strong odor because, as it says earlier, the excrement was falling from the trees for weeks. It was raining on sunny days. And there was just a continual sound of dropping excrement in our backyard. And then that caused a foul odor. And therefore we were unable to actually use our backyard from late May into July. Some people we talked to and my wife had nightmares. You could actually see the caterpillars crawling in their dreams. So it was kept people awake at night and caused a lot of stress. It had a huge impact on our trees. One thing I saw with these caterpillars, they were just essentially shredding the leaves and not even eating the whole leaf, but dropping. And what I'm showing here is a pail of some stuff I vacuumed up. These are just shredded pieces of leaf off the ground. In our driveway, you can see on the ground, again, this is in June, shredded pieces of leaf that weren't even consumed. So we were very busy dealing with the caterpillars. So I don't have a lot of pictures, but these are just some that we were able to catch. Sorry. The squirrels disappeared from our backyard. They did come back later in July, but they were gone. This is a picture of a robin nest that was kind of on the ledge of one of our backyard windows. These guys couldn't leave because they couldn't fly. And during their development in the nest, caterpillars were actually crawling over them. But mom and dad, they wouldn't eat them because robins do not eat or want to touch these things. All the other birds that could just packed up and left because of the caterpillar infestation. Our neighbors and I, we took a lot of measures when we knew it was going to be a bad year. We were out banding all of our trees. We got a shop vac out and we actually spent hours just vacuuming the trunks to get the caterpillars. This is a picture of a bucket of caterpillars just soaking in detergent. And I'm not exaggerating, my wife at some points was spending 7 hours a day vacuuming our trees just to try to keep the population down. And then we were scraping them. We had to wear these disposable coveralls to go into our backyard to protect ourselves from them. We did try some manual spraying of smaller trees around our yard with the BTK. And then obviously Davy tree came in. We had pheromone traps. Since the fall, I've been out scraping eggs into detergent again. And I've also been walking into Westbrook Park, and every time you go through an area, you see more because they hide them at very hidden angles. So I've also been scraping eggs in the park and in our backyard. And we also did a sort of fertilization of the soil. So we bought just some slow release fertilizer and sprinkled that through the forest just to help the trees, because during the summer, they were not able to produce a lot of energy to help them for the next year round. So these are a bunch of things that we and our neighbors have been doing. Also, when we heard about this coming up, we quickly kind of circulated an online petition. I just had more feedback this morning. So I know I shared this with Councillor Cates, but we currently have 30 homes in the area and 50 respondents sort of supporting. And again, this was all gathered in a very short time of only 3 days what we did is circulated the petition. It was digital, so there's no actual signing of it, but they shared their emails, their address, and they were open to share comments also, which were shared with you. The measures taken last year, the spraying, when they sprayed from the ground, they were only reaching halfway up our trees. And that bottom half of the tree that helped the bottom half. but the very tops of our trees were completely wiped out. So we really do support this motion for aerial spraying. And we'd like to thank you for allowing us to speak today.
And thank you for your organized presentation and comments. And we'll move to the next delegation now. That would be Robin and Pat Hart, please. Good morning.
Good morning, and sincere thanks for inviting us to address the council. Terry and Marlene are our next door neighbors. So we live at 31 Birchcrest Drive, and we also back right onto Westbrook Park. Terry and Marlene put together a really comprehensive presentation on behalf of all of us. So I won't bore you with with going over a lot of that stuff that has just been said. But I just want to add that we, the last 2 summers were summers that we care not to repeat. It was terrible. And this year, of course, last year and this year, not just because of COVID, but we just were not able to use our backyards basically for at least 6 weeks. The decks and the outdoor areas were all covered with a gooey muck, which was the caterpillar poop. Basically, it on our gazebo with a canvas roof, it sounded like constant rain. And the decks had to be power washed several times just to clear it. So what had been a densely covered tree canopy was stripped bare. I've just never seen anything like it. And I know it was frustrating for particularly all of us in that area backing onto the park. The caterpillars came down on kind of, it looks almost like spider webs, silky webs. I'll just share a couple of photographs to you, but same thing happened to me that happened to Terry. If it got onto your skin, you developed a rash. So we'll just show you some of the photographs that we had before and after. This was basically what the deck looked like at the beginning of it. That was what was daily on the deck. Just unbelievable. And the shredded leaves and the caterpillar excrement. On our walkways, that was what the stones looked like. And that was what they looked like after the caterpillars on a daily basis. The trees, that's caterpillars going up the trees. We had them banded to try to catch a lot of them, but of course, it's on an oak, you can't cover all the holes, so they get underneath it. We talked about the canopy of leaves that we have behind us. Terry's and Marlene's house is off to the left. By the way, sorry, I should introduce my wife, Pat, sitting beside me. That's normally what we have. And after a couple of weeks, that was what we had. It just stripped them.
Hello? I'm on a Zoom meeting here.
I don't think that those, I don't know how many other years the trees can survive this kind of devastation, but I suspect that it won't be too many years that they can put up with this. Our pond in the back, which is normally a nice clear pond, the caterpillars, I guess as they decomposed, that was a film of kind of scum that just spread across the top of the pond, which was really difficult to clean. We ended up having to put nets across it, but still, they came in on the side and wind blew them in. So it wasn't totally successful. And that is my version of Terry's rash that developed, because you could never be sure, as long as you walked outside, you could never be sure whether the caterpillars had landed on you and were kind of burrowing into your clothes. This turned out to be caterpillars that had come up my legs, and I didn't realize were in there. And I found out the next morning that they were still in my clothes, having tried to shake them out, etc. But that is the rash that developed. Just a further photograph of the eaves troughs. We were told by Davy Tree that we were spraying at a point at which the caterpillars had already, it was a little bit late for them. Apparently you need to spray them when they're very small, but the caterpillars, by the time the spraying was done, was large. And as Terry mentioned, they could not reach the tops of the trees. So we wholeheartedly support aerial spraying. That will make a significant difference. And of course, particularly this summer where we're all pretty much locked down, that too, there's a psychological effect to all of this. So we do appreciate your efforts to get the spraying done, aerial spraying done. And I think that's, we speak for pretty much everyone that's around the park. Thank you very much.
And thank you both for sharing your story and your pictures and presentation as well. I don't think we have anyone else. Oh, I'm sorry. One more. Yes, Mr. Murray. There he is.
Hello. How are
Hello,
you?
Mr. Murray.
Hi, I don't think here, I'll start my video. There we go. Thanks, Council, for allowing me the opportunity to speak. Like the others, I've prepared a bit of a presentation to kind of tell our side of things, and I'd like to share that now. So hopefully you can see my presentation there. So what I wanted to hit on, and I know you guys already are well aware of your official plan, but the Kilworth Park woodlot, which extends into the backs of our properties, is designated as a significant woodlot. And the official plan provides some general principles behind that, which is to protect and wherever possible enhance significant natural features, et cetera, and significant woodlands is one of these natural features that's to be protected. And obviously there's some goals associated with the official plan. The most significant one is to encourage continued stewardship. And we believe that spraying with a BTK to control the invasive and destructive pest is the correct action for the municipality with regards to their environmental stewardship. We know that COVID made a response last year difficult to coordinate and to time everything properly, but we think this year is the year that we really need to be on top of this and spray it, so we don't have another year of exponential growth, which will further defoliate our trees. So here are a couple pictures just to sort of show the resident side of the stewardship that we have. All the residents that are proximal to the Kilworth Park woodlot, we love our trees and we take steps to protect our trees. We hire arborists, as you can see in the picture on the right, to trim and inspect our trees to protect their health. And as well, we enjoy the benefits that those trees bring. You can see the syrup buckets hanging off of the maples. That's in my backyard. So I just wanted to touch on a few of the interventions that we as the residents did. I know this has been covered by the others, but this is sort of our version of things. Terry spoke about a lot of the things that we've done in the past: banding of trees, power washing, the droppings that fall, scraping egg masses. But we've been taking action for 2 years, and we've been fighting this problem for 2 years now, and it has increased in severity every year. Davy Tree, we felt the spraying did help last year. Anecdotally, it was about 40% effective because we did notice a fair amount of the caterpillars were killed, but obviously because of the time of year, some of them were too large and it didn't quite finish them off. So I know we've kind of had some pictures sharing our different war wounds, but here's some rashes that my wife and kids had experienced last year from coming into contact with the gypsy moth. So I just want to stress that this issue is beyond just a nuisance issue. This is impacting, people's health. So we've all kind of got some pictures, I guess, of how bad it was, but here's our pictures. So this is from May and June of 2020. As Robin pointed out, some of the trees were almost completely defoliated last year. And our concern at this point is we don't want to kill trees that have taken decades to grow just because of perhaps some minor budgetary concerns or a few residents that are concerned about monarchs. Not to minimize their concerns, but in this instance, I think the impacts definitely justify the risk. We're worried about the loss of habitat if these trees die, and the financial implications too. If these trees die and they need to be taken down, it's not exactly cheap to take these trees down, especially given the sort of lay of the land and the access issues. I noticed that the Stantec report indicated that the outbreaks that are characterized by the exponential growth typically last 2 to 3 years. I think Landon touched on that. But the one thing that kind of got me concerned is the 2021 ministry report indicated that they didn't believe 2020 was a peak. They listed a number of years that were peaks, and the last one was 2014. So my concern is that 2020 was the buildup to 2021 peak. And if that's the case, and we have to deal with worse conditions than this, it's going to be unbearable. So I'm kind of rushing through this quickly because I know you guys are trying to respect your time. But here's some pictures I took this morning of some of the trees. These are the trees on the roadway allowance on the other side of the Westbrook Park where people park their cars. There's a row of maples there. And so it's clear that the gypsy moths have migrated from that Kilworth Park woodlot to these trees. And if you go and walk that parking area and look up at the trees, you'll see that just about every tree that's in that row is covered with similar egg masses such as this. And I know the Stantec did their investigations in the woodlot, but we're, obviously they couldn't cover private property, but we're seeing stuff similar conditions to this in our backyard. We've tried to scrape, but we're concerned that not everybody's scraping. Obviously, we're not. There's no program to scrape trees in the woodlot. So the aerial spraying we think is the most effective and the right course of action to control this, so it doesn't get worse. Sorry, I kind of rushed through that a little quickly, but that's all I had to say. And again, we really appreciate Scott bringing forth the recommendation of council for the spraying, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you for that presentation as well, Kyle. I'll look to council. Is there anything anyone wants to comment on or ask before we move on? Okay, I don't see anything. So we have a motion before us. It is that report CMS 05-2021 regarding gypsy moth data analysis and results be received, and that the gypsy moth survey and data analysis prepared by Stantec Consulting Limited appended to report CMS 05-2021 be received. And further that council approve the use of Zimmer Air Services to conduct aerial spraying in areas identified in the attached Appendix B, appended to report CMS 05-2021. If I could have a mover, please, and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Cates. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that motion is carried then. Okay, thank you, Scott, for that. And we'll move on now to request for adjustment of water usage, item 8.5. Do we have a delegate? Okay.
We'll hear from Tiffany's report first.
All right. Okay, so moving on to the report, which is item 8.5. Tiffany, if you'd like to present that. Start there. Okay.
So through you, Mayor DeVete, we have received a request from a business here in the municipality with request to an adjustment to the water usage. Everything is outlined within the report, and I believe that the business owner is on the line to speak to it in more detail. You'll notice in the financial implications section, I have noted what the loss in revenue would be. This is something that I guess would go against the policies of the municipality. But once again, as staff have let the business owner know, the only authority that can approve it would be council, and therefore it's been brought forward today.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll move to, oh, I guess I should start with councillors. Does anyone on council have any question at this point? Seeing none, then, okay, we have our resident on. There he is. Just have to unmute. There's Matt.
Hi there.
Good morning, Mr. Hogenboom. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you? Thank you for inviting me to the meeting today.
You can go ahead.
So you've also, I'm going to see if I can get my video going here. Oh,
there you are.
So first of all, I wanted to say thank you for allowing me to come on here and talk. You've obviously all read my letter that I sent in. The purpose of the letter that I sent in was actually on the advice of the plumber that we had used to determine the issue and fix and resolve the leak that was subgrade. And the reason why he suggested that I appeal to the council was actually because the City of London has a policy, from what he's telling me, that in the events of kind of somewhat catastrophic events similar to the water leak that we had, there are permissions within the London water billing situation to allow for one-time usage or forgiveness of bills that would have been exponentially higher than they would normally be due to a leak. So when I had spoken to the members over at the water collection for Middlesex Centre, I asked about that and was told that Middlesex Centre does not have that same allowance within the municipality here. So the recommendation was then made to come before council, send a letter in requesting a one-time change to average usage. This situation was not minor in nature. We're a coffee business that uses water all day long. And I first would like to thank the municipality for at least acknowledging in March to us that we had a problem, because had they not actually even notified us, I guess when I got the bill, I would have seen something and noticed that there was a problem, but it allowed us to at least get ahead of the problem before it got worse. And actually, since the original leak was discovered, and part of the issue was that it wasn't coming up through the floor and was going somewhere underneath the building, which we still to this day do not know where it was going. We're assuming that it was just filtering into the gravel drainage below the building. So, but the main culprit actually reared its ugly head on the last day, where we actually had the plumber there searching it out, and we had a flood in the back of house area of the restaurant, which finally gave us the needed information to determine that it was a hot water line that had actually started as a pinhole leak, moved to a larger leak, and then had pretty much just severed off of the two ends of the hose, or the two ends of the PEX line. So I'm appealing to council. I wouldn't normally do this if it wasn't for a significant already decreased level of business and strain on our operations due to COVID. But this was 4 times the February billing was actually 4 times our usage. We normally use between 85 and 90 cubic meters of water in a month. And in February, it was identified that we actually used 411 cubic meters. So for a business that uses water all day long, you can, at 95 cubic meters a month, you can understand that 4 times that is a lot of water. So I will respect any decision that the council makes. The bill has already been paid. The March bill was also significantly higher. And again, I will respect council's decision, but we at least took the steps on the advice of our plumber and on the, not the recommendation, but the information given to us that this was the only route to appeal this bill, to be billed based on average usage versus actual usage. So I'll leave it at that, and I appreciate your time, and I will honor and respect any decision that you guys make.
Thank you. I will now turn to council. Are there questions from council? Councillor Shipley.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Through the mayor to Matt, have you considered taking any legal action against your contractor here? Like, there's no way this should have started leaking. I'm not sure how old that building is, maybe 5 years. Like, to me, this seems to be an issue of when the installation was done originally.
So we've not taken any action. The process of my relationship with the landlord is actually done through our corporate office. I'm actually not the tenant. I am through a subtenant lease. Our head office is actually the people that are on the head lease. So I do have the ability to go through our building maintenance program. However, the building is 10 years old. I've asked the plumber as to what his ideas would be as to why this leak would have even occurred in the first place. Has he dealt with these kinds of things before? And his response was, yes, they've dealt with leaks subgrade before. They're very difficult to find. His full story was, you're lucky that it actually came up and did show some water through the tiles, because that effectively saved you thousands from having to run tracers on which line it was. And he was able to immediately cap that line, essentially discontinue its use, and run a new line above the restaurant through the drop ceiling. So to answer your question, no, we've not gone down that route, but based on the advice and information from my plumber, it's not a completely inconceivable occurrence. And he has dealt with them before. It's essentially bad luck of the draw. We only actually took over this restaurant in September, so we didn't have a fair we live in the community. I'm in an area that has a well service, so I don't use the municipal water in my residential area. However, I do hear the moans and groans of neighbors in the area that the water billing is higher in Middlesex Center. My other restaurants are actually outside of Middlesex Center. Our water bills are significantly lower on a bi-monthly basis. So I wasn't surprised when our first bill came in September that I was higher. And that's probably why I didn't acknowledge and notice it when the first bill in January was actually higher, which is when we're now narrowing back to the pinhole leak starting, because the bill in January was already higher than what it should have been for cubic meter usage. But I chalked it up to the fact that the bills in Middlesex Center are already significantly higher. And because we are such new owners of this restaurant, we didn't have enough experience with the billing for this restaurant or this location or this municipality for it to raise any red flags.
Anyone else? Okay, then. We have
I
a
think
motion.
Councillor Heffernan has a question.
Oh, sorry. Yep, I see your hand now. Sorry.
I just wanted to let Mr. Hugenberg know that many of us completely understand this situation because we've had leaks in our own homes. And yeah, it can get pretty pricey until you figure out where it happened. And so I do empathize. But I also have to say that, we haven't been able to reimburse others that have had the same situation, unfortunately. Having the heads up from the finance department is one thing we've done, and also allowing extended time to pay for it if it's caused a huge problem. But so I just have to say I'm empathetic, but unfortunately, the rules are the rules. So, sorry.
Thank you.
I'll take one more look to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Councillor Scott.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could direct this to Tiffany, I suspect if we were to do anything with this bill, I know it's really unfortunate for anybody when that happens, but would that have to be paid by the rest of the tax base, I'm assuming?
So you, through you, Mayor DeVete, so the water system does pay for itself. So it would be through the water and wastewater rate users. So, and as Matt noted, like the City of London does have programs, and we've talked about this in the past with the municipality of creating a program, and it would have specific criteria to individuals that experience a leak, and it's like a significant amount, that there would be a portion that would be absorbed. This would be a fund that would be on, it would be raised by the water and wastewater users. So on everybody's bill, we would put aside a certain amount that would go into a specific fund, so that when situations like this do happen, we would draw from that fund. At the time when we discussed, I believe it was a year or so ago, we decided not to proceed with that, as it was just an additional charge to our water and wastewater users. And we do have, anyway, so we do have concerns with the rates that are being paid at this time. So a fund has not been paid, and if there is a write-off, it does hit, it would just hit the water and wastewater revenue accounts.
Okay.
So it's isolated.
Yep, thank you, Tiffany.
Councillor Arts.
I just thought of something, or I would have brought it up before this meeting. If the water was leaking underneath the building, it wasn't going into storm sewer or sewer water. Was his sewer water charge also high for those months or not?
Yeah, so through you, Mayor DeVete, yes. So the way the water and wastewater rates work, it is based on the water meter reading. So your wastewater, so if your meter reading was 441 cubic meters, your wastewater charge is based on that as well. And that's through our bylaws, that is how it's calculated.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to call the motion then, seeing no hands. The motion before us is that no action be taken on the request to adjust the water usage on the corporation's water account. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Arts. Is anyone opposed to this? And I don't see any hands, and the motion is carried then. So I'm sorry, Matt. I think probably Councillor Heffernan's remarks are reflective of the thinking, and but I thank you for your time and your efforts. So fortunately, at this point, there's nothing that can be no steps that can be taken to resolve your misery. Okay.
Thanks. I appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too, bye-bye.
Yes.
There we go. Wonder why that happened. Sorry about that. I just disappeared for a minute. Moving on to the correspondence items. We have 4 here. Is there anything anyone wants to comment on or highlight? I don't see anything. The motion before us is then that correspondence items 9.1 through 9.4 listed on the April 14th, 2021 at council agenda be received for information. A mover, Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Cates is seconding. Is anyone opposed? And that is carried. I'll look to the deputy now for a county council update, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not too much to report. Martha Powell from the London Community Foundation gave us a report. They've been around for about 70 years. There's approximately 191 community foundations throughout Canada. They have $8 billion in assets across the Canada, and they work on health and well-being in different communities. They receive their funds mainly through cash or gifts from securities or estates. They get a lot of in wills. They get a lot of donations from that sort of thing too. They've got about $20 million set aside for affordable housing fund that they use. To date, $7 million of that has been loaned out for 450 affordable housing units. What they do is they loan the money out at a very low interest rate, and then the principal gets paid back, and they work from there. Currently, they're working with a bunch of different agencies on the old Victoria Hospital lands, developing it. So they are working there. They've worked with the Elsa Craig Food Bank when they had their fire. The Women Rural Resource Center, they've worked with those also. John Harkins from the county benefit renewal reported that the premiums are down 0.3%. Different things are up and down, but the major up one is the dental fee guide, which has increased almost 11% over the last 3 years, 4.6% this current year. The county, a year ago, the Board of Health reported to the county council about the higher incidences of health concerns in the county over the city. We haven't heard anything lately, so the county's writing a letter to the London Middlesex Board of Health to see what they found out about any reasons or concerns why the people in the county health were more significant and at a higher rate than in the city. So that letter will be drafted and sent to the Board of Health to see what kind of response we get from there. The Middlesex Economic Resiliency Task Force did a 1-year checkup. They contacted a lot of businesses to see how they're navigating the COVID-19. 65% declared a decrease in revenues. 5% said they had no difference in revenues, and there's actually 10% said their revenues had increased. 95% of the businesses did report a lot of challenges, both personal and business-wise, during the pandemic. 38% had to lay off workers. 30% retained staff. 25% had no employees. 100% of the businesses did report, though, that as soon as COVID's over, they are looking to rehire all their staff and get people back to work. The only other real thing is tonight there's our county women's caucus is having a webinar. If anybody's interested on hooking up to that webinar, they can talk to Mayor DeVete, and she will give them the information how to hook up to the webinar and what it's going to be contained in that. Thank you.
And thank you for that presentation. Does anyone have a question for the deputy? Okay, thank you very much for that, John. And moving on to other business, we have 2 matters today. I'll turn it over to Councillor Arts for the first one.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Lately, I've had some reoccurring conversations with property owners about people trespassing on their properties. I realize that sometimes it's an unintentional oversight, and the person does not realize what they've done until after the fact. And if it's pointed out to them, they apologize and vow to be more thoughtful. A short time ago, I actually had one of these occurrences where I realized what I was starting to do was not very bright, and I did a hasty retreat. But there's property owners with no trespassing signs that are repeatedly being ignored by offenders. Some people have cut fences to enter the property. Trees have been cut down. Grass has been planted and cut on properties backing up to theirs. People have created trails, both walking and riding their ATVs. They've hunted without permission, and the list keeps going on and on. It also should be noted that dumping leaves and grass cuttings onto the edge of a nearby woodlot that is not yours is not only illegal dumping, It also disturbs the natural ecosystem of the woodlot and is an environmental no-no. Property owners are getting very frustrated with people who habitually enter their property without permission. My message today is to please respect property boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Arts. And we have a second item that is mine, and it is with respect to municipal illumination. Middlesex Centre has been an early adopter of new approaches to community well-being, including things like green technologies and energy savings. Some of our initiatives have been larger and others have been smaller. In January, I attended the OGRA conference and specifically attended a session that focused on municipal illumination and light pollution in the context of best practices illumination design. The thread of the discussion included a number of variables, including things like safety and security, while maintaining efficient energy consumption and minimizing effects on human and nocturnal wildlife. So specifically, the presentation highlighted conversions in both residential and commercial areas to 1800 kpc amber LED lights and referred to illumination engineering standards, commonly known as IESNA, that applied various aspects of lighting design to bug ratings, which has nothing to do with the six-legged kind or the ones we heard about just a moment ago with moths. It actually refers to backlight, uplight, and glare. And there were other things about cutoff classifications, none, semi, cutoff, full cutoff. It was all very interesting. But it led me to thinking about improvements to illumination practices that might be applied in our communities in Middlesex Centre. First, light pollution is a topic that we hear is increasingly of interest to various individuals in communities, not only ours, but across Ontario. In many rural communities, it's becoming much more common to see agriculture under glass, and the light pollution that is associated with some greenhouses is becoming a point of discussion for many residents and non-residents alike. Second, there are safety issues around lighting, specifically poor lighting standards, and that presentation that I saw showed how it's not always a good thing to have very bright lights. Finally, one of the things that many people associate with living in rural areas is enjoyment of dark nights and starry skies. And increasingly, a starry sky is recognized as a natural attraction, which dark sky communities promote to potential tourists. So keeping this brief introduction in the context of my request, I'd like to give a notice of motion as follows. Whereas the appropriate standards and effective management of illumination in Ontario communities is a topic of interest to many groups and individuals, and whereas the best practices and industry standards for surrounding effective illumination practices are changing with the introduction of new green technologies which promote energy conservation as part of effective lighting techniques, and whereas municipalities have the authority to enact bylaws and policies which help to standardize and promote effective lighting practices. Now, therefore, it be resolved that staff review the current research, industry standards, and best practices with regard to municipal illumination standards, and that staff is to explore factors including, but not limited to, cost efficiencies, impacts on security and safety, and opportunities to improve quality of life for residents when undertaking this review. And further, that a report to council outlining the potential costs and benefits relating to any proposed recommendations regarding implementation of municipal illumination standards over time be presented to council once the review is complete. So I'll look to the clerk.
That's accepted.
It's accepted, thank you, and I'll look forward to a report then. Moving on now, we're going to go into closed session. I would ask that the Council for Municipality of Middlesex Centre adjourn to closed session at 11:38 a.m. pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as amended to discuss the following matters. Section 239, subsection 2K, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations to be carried on, carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Oops, that's it. So I would ask for a mover and a seconder. I have Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Shipley, all in, any opposed, pardon me.